Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah bil alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Muhammad bil Kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Wa ba'd. First of all, I'd like to welcome all of our viewers and listeners and I'd like to thank you all for taking out your valuable time to attend to today's program. We acknowledge that sometimes there are misunderstandings over recent events regarding Tahir chicken. We also acknowledge sometimes there's controversy over various topics, various certification issues, and also various issues taking place locally here in the Bay Area. And I'm assuming most of our attendees are from the Bay Area, and our sponsors as well are mostly from the Bay Area. So inshallah, this is a interactive forum. Inshallah, we will have time for Q&A as well. And the objective of these type of programs is to build bridges, to remove some of the misconceptions, and also to educate ourselves on some of these important issues, inshallah. So inshallah, the rough agenda which I have planned for today is as follows. Number one, we'll be discussing the importance of consuming halal and the importance of consuming authentic halal in light of the Quran and Hadith. That itself, inshallah, we'll cover as a first topic, inshallah. The second topic, we will spend more time discussing the specifics and the specific challenges that we face. Why are there so many challenges facing Muslims eating halal today as compared to in the past generations, as compared to the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as compared to even the recent past? Right? Why is there so much confusion? Why is it so difficult? Why there's so many challenges? And what is unique about our situation? So that will be number two. Number three, we'll be discussing solutions. We will be discussing the need for verification systems. We'll be discussing specifically the organization that we have set up in the Bay Area, perhaps the only organization in the Bay Area dedicated towards halal verification and promoting of hand slaughter. So inshallah, we will discuss all those issues, and inshallah, we will leave time for Q&A as well. So inshallah, we will try to leave as much time as possible, and we will try to cover as many topics and questions that you may have. Inshallah, we will address them in the end. So in the beginning, I do wish to discuss, in brief, the importance of eating halal. This is something which is universal, as Brother Asim also mentioned in the beginning. Our goal is to be inclusive, and our goal is to bring Muslims together and focus on what we have in common. And although we might have different interpretations of halal, although we might agree on certain specifics, hand slaughter, machine slaughter, etc., the one thing that we can all agree upon is the Holy Quran and Hadith. And this is what brings us all together. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ encouraged us that there are two things, if you hold on to them fast, you will never go astray. And one of them is the Quran, the other is the Sunnah, according to one version of the Hadith. Right? So the Sunnah here, we refer to the prophetic practice. The Quran, we refer to the holy book of the Muslims. So when we read the Holy Quran and when we go through the Hadith of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, there are many verses and there are many hadith and sayings which encourage the eating of halal and which encourage the consumption of halal foods and halal meat. And likewise, there are multiple benefits and there are multiple advantages in eating halal, and there are multiple harms and dangers in consuming a haram and that which is unlawful. Inshallah, to make sure we're all on the same page, we might have some new Muslims here as well. Halal is that which is lawful and permissible. Haram is that which is unlawful and prohibited. So I will share with you today an important hadith and saying, authentic hadith and saying of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, which really summarizes the whole topic for us and really drives home the point of eating halal. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is reported to have said in a hadith إن الله طيب لا يقبل إلا طيبا وإن الله أمر المؤمنين بما أمر به المرسلين يا أيها الرسل كلوا من الطيبات واعملوا صالحا ثم ذكر رجلا أشعث أغبر يطيل السفر يرفع يديه يقول يا ربي يا رب وملبسه حرام ومركبه حرام وغذي بالحرام فأنا يستجاب له رواه Imam Muslim في صحيحه. So among the most authentic books of hadith, Sahih Muslim has recorded the following statement of the Prophet Muhammad in which he says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pure and he only accepts that which is pure as well. He only accepts that food and meat which is pure and which is halal. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded the believers with the same command that he has issued to the prophets. In other words, that same verse of the Quran, which is directly addressing the prophets, also applies to you and I. The command is the same. The prophets have been commanded the same way, and all the believers, you and I, have been commanded the same way as well. What is that command? It is a verse of the Quran. Ya ayyuhar rusul kulu min at-tayyibati wa'malu salihah. O messengers, eat from the lawful, eat from the halal, eat from the pure foods, and do good deeds. Now, I will pause for a second. Even with regards to this verse, the scholars have written in detail and explained the meanings of it in detail. That eating halal is the key towards doing good deeds. Sometimes people ask, why do you only talk about this halal issue? Aren't there other issues to talk about? And they say, hey, eating halal is not that big a deal. Hey, why are we making such a big fuss about it? Some of the questions are, we've received certain questions. Why are you making such a big deal about hand slaughter here? So in this verse of the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning two things. One is eating halal and lawful foods, and the other is doing good deeds. What is the link between the two of them? That yes, what you eat has an impact on how you behave. What you eat has an impact on your spiritual state, on your ability to do good deeds, or your inability to do good deeds. So eating halal affects all aspects of our life, whether we can perceive it, whether we can realize it or understand it. There is a spiritual impact of what we eat. You are what you eat. And now, in the next part of the hadith, the Prophet Muhammad has given us a case study, right? A real life example that we can relate to. Just in case this topic might seem abstract, the subject matter of this hadith might seem abstract to us, to some of us. Thereafter, the Prophet Muhammad gives us a real life example. And this example is very relevant to the time of the year that we are in right now. As you know, many of us might know, tomorrow is the day of Arafat. We are closely approaching the days of Hajj and the day of Eid al-Adha, the day of Bakr Eid, and the main days of Hajj. Right? The 9th and 10th day of the Hajj. These are the main days for Hajj. So the Prophet Muhammad gave us an example, and he says there's one man who his appearance is disheveled, unkempt. Right? The person looks like they've aghbar, and their body is covered with dirt, right, as a result of travel. Atala safar, and this person has been traveling for a long period of time. As we know, sometimes in the old days when a person would travel, and even today, if a person travels on certain trains in different parts of the world, right, you will have dirt and soot all over your body. And it's going to be difficult to keep your clothes clean. It's going to be difficult to iron your clothes. Right? You're traveling, you're away from home. And you don't have access to the same laundry machine, the same iron and other things which a person might have at home. Now, the commentators here point out the word as-safar has been used. And the commentators here explain that the apparent meaning here is, this is referring to the journey of Hajj, right? The journey of a lifetime to fulfill one of the 5 pillars of Islam and to fulfill one of the greatest acts of worship there is. So this individual is traveling on a very noble purpose. They have set out from their homes in pursuit of Hajj and in order to fulfill the Hajj pillar of Islam. So thereafter, the Prophet Muhammad now mentions, يَرْفَعُ يَدَيْهِ. So we know this much about this person. They've been traveling for a long period of time, and du'as and prayers are more likely to be accepted while traveling. So this individual, their appearance is very pitiable. We feel mercy, we feel sorry for such a person. And this person now from the bottom of their heart is making dua, oh my Lord, Ya Rabbi, Ya Rabbi. And the person is making dua and asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for something. Now at this juncture, many of us might think that, what a blessed person. This person is on a blessed journey. And whatever they ask for, whatever they're making dua for, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should definitely answer. Because they're on this blessed journey, they're also away from home, and this person is calling out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Finally, in the end, the Prophet Muhammad mentions 3 things about this person. And 3 negative characteristics about this person. Number 1, this person's conveyance or this person's car or animal is earned through unlawful sources or obtained through unlawful sources. That person might have stole this car. This person might have used haram money to purchase this car or purchase this animal or conveyance. So that's number 1, markabu haram. Wa malbasu haram. This person is wearing unlawful clothes. Clothes which are earned through haram and unlawful sources. And number 3, wa ghudhiya bil haram. This individual has consumed unlawful food or unlawful meat. Or this individual has consumed food or meat which is earned through unlawful sources. Both will be included. Just to clarify the 2. Just as important is halal food and halal meat is, likewise, earning a halal income is just as important. So for example, a person might have a lawful income, but they might use it to purchase unlawful food, haram food, or haram meat. And now they're eating that, it will have an impact on them. And the second possible scenario, we have to ensure that our income and our source of money also is from 100% lawful sources. The Prophet Muhammad so when he states ghudhiya bil haram, this person is nourished through unlawful food or unlawful meat. So the person might be eating lawful food or lawful meat, but because their income is haram, this will also mean that even that halal food, when they consume it, it will also be considered unlawful because it's purchased through unlawful sources. So this will also have a negative impact as well. So what is the final outcome? We should ensure both our income is 100% lawful and halal, and we should ensure that the food that we eat is also 100% halal and meets the halal requirements. Finally, the Prophet Muhammad then gives us the final verdict that this individual is on their way for a journey, for Hajj. They're on this blessed and noble journey, but at the same time, they are consuming unlawful food, they are wearing unlawful clothing, and they're also riding on an unlawful animal. What is the final result? This dua that this person is making, this prayer that this person is making and raising their hands, what happens? The Prophet Muhammad says, Anna yustajabu lahu. How will this person's dua and prayers be answered? Right? What hope is there in this person's duas and prayers being answered? So this is why the scholars explain that the precondition and the prerequisite for any dua and prayer to be answered. Oh Allah, please grant me good health. Oh Allah, grant me cure from any sickness or coronavirus. Oh Allah, remove all my problems. Oh Allah, forgive the Muslim Ummah. Oh Allah, forgive me. The prerequisite for all du'as and prayers and supplications to be answered is that the person eats halal food and lawful food. So, in brief, although there's many other verses of the Quran and there's much more that can be said, we will suffice on this to present the importance of eating halal. And as I explained, these are verses of the Quran, and these are also authentic hadith of the Prophet Muhammad that all of us believe in, that all of us accept, and which applies to all of us. It's not only for Desis, it's not only for Arabs, it's not only for Hanafis, it's not only for other madhabs. This is something we can all agree upon. This is directly from the Quran, this is directly from the authentic hadith of the Prophet Muhammad. Next, going forward, let us discuss our current situation. And some people are asking, why are things so difficult today? This was one of the questions even. We call them pre-questions. These are questions even asked before we started the program. Why is eating halal today so difficult? Why weren't the same challenges found during the previous generations, during the Salaf, during the time of the Prophet Muhammad and so on? So respected friends, part of the challenge has been that technology has also progressed. And this can be seen as a positive, or it can be seen as a negative. So for example, now we have food technology and we have developments, and we have significant progress in the field of food technology. Whereas in the old days, meat or food products would spoil, they would only last a few days. Today, with the advent of freezers, with the advent of food preservation technologies, our meat that we slaughter and food that we eat can last for months. And the expiration date can be 3 months, 4 months, even more. If we keep them in the freezer, we keep them in a certain temperature. So now, as a result, the world has become closer. And now, instead of a person having access to meat only from their locality or only from within 20 or 30 miles away, now due to transportation, due to food technology, we can receive fresh meat via the plane, via air freight. We can receive fresh meat that's not even frozen within 5 days from the other side of the world. For example, Australia or New Zealand. And this fresh meat can come into our supermarkets, and it can now remain on the shelf for a week, for 2 weeks, fresh, not frozen. Right? So these have been game changers. And as a result, there have been positives as well, but new challenges have come. Likewise, up until about 80 or 90 years ago, there was no such thing as machine slaughter. Right? Keep in mind, during the time of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, even up till about maybe 100 years ago or a little bit longer, all meat and all animals that were slaughtered by hand. Right? The facilities did not exist. The technology did not exist. So as a result, by default, everything was slaughtered by hand. So these are some factors to keep in mind that have changed things. Likewise, the proliferation of ingredients and various additives, various preservatives, and so on that are added to our food products. Right? So, for example, 100 years ago, no one could imagine bread was always made fresh. It was always made using fresh ingredients. Who would imagine that animal ingredients and other things would be added in? Right? Especially for those people who live in Muslim countries or came from Muslim countries or came from overseas, who would imagine that pork lard could be used to make bread? Right? But that's unfortunately that for a long time in America, if you ask our parents and people who migrated here in the 60s and 70s, that was the norm. Right? Even consuming bread was difficult because pork lard was added in. So my point right now is to explain why many new contemporary challenges are facing us today when it comes to eating halal. right? And some of these challenges were not present in the past. The technology simply did not exist, or the access to meat from different parts of the world did not exist as well. So today, for example, if we go to halal meat stores in the Bay Area, we will find meat and we will find canned products from Brazil, from Australia, from New Zealand, from Canada, sometimes from even Uruguay, sometimes from Australia, from New Zealand, and various parts of the world. We'll find even sometimes preserved meat products like beef jerky or other products, even from Belgium, even from Guatemala, and from various parts. Right? We might find marshmallows with halal gelatin from Argentina or from Guatemala. So as you can imagine, these new challenges are coming up now. It's not that we can only worry about the halal status of butchers and slaughterhouses locally, but we now have to have information about slaughterhouses, suppliers, meat suppliers from literally all over the world. And also, of course, all over America as well. From slaughterhouses in New York, from slaughterhouses in Louisiana, from slaughterhouses in Alabama, Georgia, and so on. So my point here is to give us a little bit of background to understand why we are in the situation that we are in and why we are facing these unique challenges. And ultimately, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has willed these challenges for us. He has created these situations. And inshallah, He has also created solutions for us as well. So inshallah, keep hope, inshallah. Have hope, inshallah, all is not lost. But I do wish to give some background, right? So the point is to understand why these unique challenges exist. In fact, a prominent Muslim American scholar, many of you have heard his name. He gave a lecture here in MCA in Santa Clara. Sheikh Yasir Qadi, Damat Barakatuh. So now, to complicate things a little bit further, he has said about the current state of halal meat stores and restaurants in America. And we're talking about tens of thousands of halal meat stores, restaurants. Even in the Bay Area, we have about 1,000 halal meat stores and restaurants. So Sheikh Yasir Qadi had this to say. He said, the level of fraud, deception, and cheating in the halal meat industry in America today is undeniable, has reached a level of tawatur. It is an accepted fact. Right? This is him speaking himself. And I vividly remember in Los Angeles, in Southern California, a few years ago, there was a lawsuit for $1 million in which the city and the local government filed this case against a Muslim business located in Southern California. Right? So the point is, again, to explain some unique aspects of our situation, explain some of the challenges that we are facing, and provide some background, right? Provide some background why we are in our current situation and why some of these challenges exist. Ultimately, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has willed for them to exist. And I'm giving you some background and why things have been further complicated and why it is such a challenge. Okay, so I will inshallah, so I will now spend some time discussing the solutions, and inshallah, we will also take a look at some of the questions as well. Okay. So today, I will make this clear. This is not a fiqh discussion, and we are not going to get into the technical aspects of what is halal, what is not halal, and specifics regarding machine slaughter. I will say this much, that as a mufti and as a scholar here in the Bay Area, I strongly support, advocate, and encourage Muslims to eat hand slaughter. I will stop at that. I will not comment regarding machine slaughter. Right? Is machine slaughter halal or not? You can consult with your scholars. You can talk to the scholars privately. That is a separate discussion. But this specific Bay Area Zabiha group, the objective is, which Brother Asim has set up for us, is to promote, to encourage, to educate ourselves regarding specifically hand slaughter. So this much we can agree on. Every single one of us here can agree on, inshallah, that hand slaughter is halal. Right? This is something we have common. It is, inshallah, something we can accept. Hand slaughter is halal according to everyone. Hand slaughtering chicken, hand slaughtering cows, this is unanimously accepted. It's something we can all agree on. And for our purposes, I do not wish to go into more detail whether machine slaughter is acceptable or not, whether it's haram or not. That is a separate topic. We will not discuss this right now. Right? So I can say that the objective of HAFSA, the objective of the Halal Food Standards Alliance of America, my recommendation to the Muslim community, my encouragement to the Muslim community is to consume hand-slaughtered meat products. Right? That is my recommendation. That is my encouragement. That is also my stance and position as well. Okay, so now, inshallah, I will spend some time discussing the solution, inshallah. So that is $1 million question. When we're discussing this challenge, when we're discussing these contemporary challenges and the difficulties and the hardships that many of us face, many of you are probably asking, what is the solution? Right? How can our life be made easier? What is the solution? So the solution is in setting up a reliable verification system, a system of checks and balances, a system of monitoring, a system of inspections, and a system of halal integrity from the slaughter process all the way to the final consumer. Right? So this is the vision that we have in mind. And to be fair, in learning from the Jews and Christians, and learning specifically from the kosher industry, right? The kosher industry has a very similar system in place. Right? If we take a page from their book, they've set up the system about 40 years before us. They have 40 years more experience than we do. Right? They have their rabbis. Their rabbis oversee the whole slaughter process. Their rabbis oversee any further processing. Their rabbis oversee the restaurants. And their job is to sign off and to make sure that that final meat product is 100% halal. That is the process. And what do we mean by from the farm to the fork? And what do we mean from the production all the way to the final consumer? Right. So the objective is to have monitoring. The objective is to have supervision and monitoring from the whole process. Right. So the objective is to give a peace of mind to the consumer. That the consumer doesn't have to do all this research. The consumer doesn't have to call up these restaurants and ask, brother, is your meat halal? Brother, do you know what zabiha is? Brother, are you a Muslim? Brother, do you read 5 times salat? We don't have to deal with these issues. That is objective. So if this verification system or this certification system, if they're doing the work for us, then in that way, our life is made a lot easier. Right? That is really the goal of this whole process, to make our lives easier. And it'd be that much easier, for example, on a product, just have this product in front of us, if there is a halal logo on there, right? Or there's a certification seal, or we walk in a restaurant, or we walk in a halal meat store, or we go and pick up a food product from Walmart or Food Max or from a supermarket. If there's a halal seal on there, and this organization has set up a system of checks and balances of halal verification, the whole objective here is not to make things difficult at all, but to make life easier for all of us. That is the objective. And really, this group will be carrying on this responsibility on behalf of everyone else. This group would be taking on a communal obligation and would be doing this work on behalf of all of us. Right? So that is the vision here. And at the very least, reliable food options and meat options and restaurant options should be available to those who wish to eat hand slaughter. Right? That is, our standard is hand slaughter. We promote hand slaughter. And the objective is to provide those options, to make life easier, to provide more options for us. And yes, to also provide more affordable options as well. Right? That is the objective here. So again, what are some of the challenges that we face? Labeling, transparency, and disclosure. MashaAllah, we have about 1,000 halal meat stores and restaurants in the Bay Area. How many of them openly say we use machine slaughtered chicken? Why aren't they being transparent and forthcoming with regarding this? We're living in a world, alhamdulillah, with the Bay Area food movement, with the move towards organic, with the move towards knowing the source of what you're eating. For example, if we walk into many non-Muslim and non-halal restaurants or stores, they're proud. They'll say in the top, our meat is sourced from Neiman Ranch. Our cheese comes from vegetarian sources or animal rennet sources. But right now, the halal crisis which we are facing in America and also in the Bay Area in particular is that the average consumer does not have the information they need and does not have the disclosures which will help them make halal decisions. As we know, unfortunately, over 90% of the halal meat stores and restaurants in the Bay Area and throughout America are using machine slaughtered chicken. They're not using hand slaughtered meat. The vast majority of stores and restaurants in the Bay Area in America, again, to repeat, the vast majority of the stores and restaurants are using machine slaughtered chicken. But is that information posted when you walk in the store? Is that disclaimer or is that information available to us? Generally, it is not. And yes, if we're looking for hand slaughtered options, again, sometimes we have to ask. Again, there's challenges. Is it partially halal? Is it 100% hand slaughtered? Do they use hand slaughter once in a while? Are they also, and other issues, of course, as well. Is the restaurant partially halal? Is it 100% halal? Does the restaurant serve pork as well? Does the restaurant also serve alcohol as well? Right? These are all challenges that we face. Right? So here's just a random food product, but you can see in the logo that this information is there about calories, total fat, cholesterol, etc. This is just an example.
Mufti Nana, just 1 second.
Yes.
If you can just check your message I sent you on your phone, just quickly.
Okay, sure. Okay, so going back to the solution. Okay, so these are some of the challenges that we're facing, and this is why there's a need for a verification system. Inshallah, I'm sure many of us want more halal options. I'm sure many of us want reliable halal options. We can take our families to go eat there. I'm sure many of us want more affordable options, right? If there's more competition, if there's more options available, then inshallah, the prices will be lowered as well. So the real objective here and the concern which all of us can agree upon right now is to make our lives easier and to make it easier to consume authentic halal, to make it easier to find hand-slaughtered options, to make it easier to identify legit and hand-slaughtered restaurants and stores in our areas, and providing us more food options as a whole, more reliable and authentic and hand-slaughtered food options as a whole. So respected friends, this is why we have set up a halal verification system in the Bay Area. Right? As far as I know, this is the only one-of-a-kind organization in the Bay Area dedicated towards halal verification of stores and restaurants. We are not aware of any other organization. Right? HAFSA, the Halal Food Standards Alliance of America, this is the only halal verification system operating in the Bay Area, which is certifying and overseeing and supervising stores and restaurants. Likewise, we have a branch in Southern California as well. Perhaps many of you during the vacation or summer vacation might go to LA or Southern California. We are also in the process of setting up a system there, we have certified stores and restaurants there as well. Right? So this is part of the solution, inshallah, and this is our objective. So inshallah, we'll now open up the forum for questions, inshallah. And so we have a few questions about machine solder. I will avoid those questions specifically, and we'll focus on hand solder. Right? This is as I mentioned, my stance is to encourage hand solder and promote and educate people about hand solder. Okay, is the meat slaughtered by the people of the book considered a halal based on their belief in one God? Right. So that's also a very detailed question. The summary is, in America right now, the 95% of chicken is machine slaughtered. Right? It's not slaughtered by a Jew, it's not slaughtered by a Christian, it's slaughtered by a machine. And applying the food of the people of the book in America, that's another question within itself. America is not a Christian country. There's a separation of church and state. And there are many people who live in America who are atheists or agnostics. So can we generalize that all meat in America is halal? All meat in America that's not pork is halal based on it being the food of the people of the book? That is a problematic claim. Right? And scholars have written about this as well. We can go into more detailing. And we can go into more details at some point later on. But yes, to say that all meat in America right now is halal because it's the food of the people of the book is a very problematic statement. Okay. The next question is specifically about defeathering or putting the chicken in very hot water. Right? So it's a mashallah, excellent question. So this is where the monitoring and supervising process comes into application. In contemporary slaughterhouses, they regulate the temperature of the water, right? To understand, after the animal is slaughtered, the chicken is specifically put through hot water to soften the feathers and to make it easier to defeather the animal. And this was the question that the individual asked. And now specifically, sometimes if the water is really hot or if it's boiling, the filth from the animals, the impurities inside the animals which haven't been removed yet, will now penetrate through to the meat. So the brother has asked this question. The answer to this question, Mufti Usmani has discussed this in his book, Legal Rulings of Slaughtering Animals. Mufti Usmani has discussed this in there. And yes, when halal organizations certify and oversee chicken slaughterhouses, we do look at the temperature of the hot water. And we make sure that it's not boiling. We make sure that it's not excessively hot. And we do regulate this process as well. So yes, generally in America, this is a non-issue. And the temperature of the hot water is never high enough to allow the impurities to seep through. And that's a summary of the answer. Okay. Yes. So another common question here is about price and saving money on halal. The fact of the matter is, machine slaughter will be cheaper than hand slaughter. Right? There's limited supply of hand slaughter. The demand for hand slaughter still is not there. So machine slaughter, and specifically Restaurant Depot, many of the suppliers sold at Restaurant Depot are machine slaughtered. And machine slaughter is much cheaper. Unfortunately, it's cheaper and it's much more widely available as well. Right? There's machine slaughter in Restaurant Depot, machine slaughter in various places throughout the Bay Area. So what would the Muslim community do about dining in these restaurants? Right. So as we said, our organization, the objective of our organization is to promote hand slaughter. And we encourage and we promote that Muslims eat only in hand slaughter places. Right. That is our recommendation and that is our encouragement. Okay. Why not add a grade to halal stamp, like halal grade A would be hand slaughter, halal grade B would be something else. Again, that's an excellent idea. But the challenge really is, by default, machine slaughter is already out there. Our organization has chosen to focus on hand slaughter and make it easier to identify and make it easier to purchase hand slaughter. Okay. For decades, Muslims all over the world have gone to Makkah and Medina to perform Hajj and Umrah. They have been and are still offering machine slaughter chicken to the pilgrimages, for the pilgrims. Arabs consider this to be fully zabiha. Right? So again, our focus right now is not debating whether or not machine slaughter is halal or not, or whether we should promote machine slaughter or not. Right? That's not our objective. Right? The objective of this program, the objective of this Facebook group, the objective of this lecture program is specifically talking about hand slaughter. Right? Hand slaughter, as I mentioned, it's something we can all agree upon. Hand slaughter is acceptable for everyone. Right? And I can't control what goes on in Saudi Arabia. I can't control what they allow, which meat suppliers they're allowing there, which meat sources they're allowing there. That's not in my jurisdiction. I can't control that. Right? So again, that part of the question, what are the Shafi and Maliki thoughts on this? We're not discussing the permissibility or impermissibility of machine slaughter right now. That's not my objective. Okay. For those places who do not have halal zabiha verification, such as Seattle, what specific questions should we ask any company if we reach out to them about their product? So very good question. Our long-term objective, which we've been working towards for the last 10 years, is to set up a national and standardized halal verification system for the whole country. By the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we now have branches, we have chapters and sort of certified restaurants in Houston. We have certified stores and restaurants in Dallas, Milwaukee, Chicago, and various other places in the world, New York as well. Of course, not throughout the world, throughout America. So our goal, inshallah, with your support and your du'as, is to set up the same verification systems in every major city in the country. Inshallah, in every major city in the country, there should be reliable hand slaughter options available to those who prefer that, inshallah. And as of now, unfortunately, in places that don't have certain those systems, you have to do your own research. Right? Ask a restaurant, what is it? Don't ask them if they're halal or not. That's not a good question. Instead, ask them, what are your halal suppliers? Which company do you use for your halal chicken? Which company do you use for your halal beef? Which company do you use for your halal lamb, and so on? So those are questions that I would ask. And from those answers, you can get a better idea if they're reliable or not. Okay, the people who are doing fraud in the halal meat system might be doing so because they're not able to manage the scale of meat consumption among the Muslim ummah. Do we have any solution to encourage them to slaughter in a halal way and also manage the scale? Excellent question, brother. So yes, as the question points out, one of the problems that we have right now is the scale and the demand of Muslims in eating meat. It is unsustainable. It is also impractical as well. In other words, what's going on is we're eating too much meat. We as Muslims are eating too much meat. And in order for us to ensure that all this meat is slaughtered in the correct way, is treated in a humane way, and fulfills all the halal requirements, it's very difficult. It's very difficult, right? And it's much more easier to cut corners. It's much more easier to use machine slaughter. It's much more easier to accept the food of the people, the book, and so on. So yes, one of the solutions is that we lower our meat consumption. Yes, I said that, brothers and sisters. We should think about not eating meat 3 times a day, 7 times a week. We should think about lowering our meat consumption. In that way, proper halal meat, hand slaughter halal meat will be more sustainable for us. It'll be more affordable for us. We're not eating out as much. We're not eating meat as much. And we can afford to pay for more healthier halal meat options, perhaps organic halal meat options, and meat which is consumed, meat which is produced while taking your time. Right? A smaller slaughterhouse is going to sell meat for a higher price than a massive industrial slaughterhouse that has economies of scale. Right? So this is also another solution, looking at our behavior and looking at our food consumption patterns. Okay. Is not all hand slaughter beef fine to eat? Recently, I came across the issue of horizontal and vertical slaughter. So yes, excellent question. Hand slaughter and machine slaughter only applies to chicken as of now, right? So machine slaughter, in other words, machine slaughter is only found in chicken right now. And by default, all beef and all lamb is hand slaughtered. But as a question, this important point that the individual has raised is that just because beef is hand slaughtered and lamb is hand slaughtered doesn't mean that it's always halal. And yes, one of the issues is vertical cut for beef versus horizontal cut. So even though both cuts are done by hand, the vertical cut for beef does not meet the halal requirements. I've written a research paper to that effect. You can look it up online. Type in Abdullah Nana, vertical cut for beef, research paper, vertical cut for beef. Inshallah, that will answer your questions. But in summary, the default slaughter method for beef in America is the vertical cut, right? Instead of going from across the throat, from ear to ear, they are slaughtering up and down. And in the slaughter method, the required vessels of the throat are not cut. They're not separate. So we cannot assume that all beef is halal. We have to do further research as well. And we have to ensure that the correct slaughter process is used for beef as well. Okay. How can one join the organization that you're setting up? MashaAllah, and set it up in other cities. Inshallah, we are on social media. Inshallah, we do have our Facebook page as well. Inshallah, shoot us an email, inshallah, from our website, halaladvocates.org. Connect with us on social media. Inshallah, we are working towards setting up chapters and certification systems throughout the country. And inshallah, reach out to us, inshallah. Okay. Can you explain why you said by default beef is hand slaughtered? Well, this has to do more with the meat industry as a whole, right? I'm sharing with you research from the halal meat industry and from the meat industry as a whole, even non-Muslims as well. As of now, machine slaughter, there are no technologies that have been developed to use machine slaughter on a large scale for lamb, for goat, or for beef. In other words, as of now, there's no technology for machine slaughter for cows or for lamb or for goat. So that is why I made the statement. This is in light of my connection with the meat industry, with the worldwide meat industry, and my understanding and interactions with meat suppliers throughout the world. There is no such thing as machine slaughter for beef. There is no such thing right now as machine slaughter for lamb or for goat. Okay, so okay. Okay, inshallah. Any more questions, inshallah?
I guess we have. Do you think we addressed all? I think you covered everything.
Okay.
Yeah. So inshallah, thank you, Mufti Sahib. Thank you for your time. And I would like to just, at the end, I would like to ask, tell a few things that I want to get you guys on board.
So if I could clarify, yeah, there's a further clarification regarding red meat. So yes, the best way to explain it is as follows. For red meat, yes, there is no such thing as zabiha or machine slaughter for cows or for lamb. But let me reiterate, that doesn't mean that all halal lamb or halal beef is automatically halal. There is a such thing as a vertical cut, and that vertical cut is commonly used for for many prominent beef suppliers in America, including Restaurant Depot, including Creekstone and other companies as well. So as a result, for beef, the best way to understand it is understand the issue is as follows. For chickens, we have to look at hand slaughter versus machine slaughter. For beef, there's no such thing as machine slaughter, but there is such thing as a vertical cut, and there's a horizontal cut. So we simply have to change the question and change the issue that is at play there. The issue at play for chicken is machine slaughter. The issue at play for beef is a vertical cut versus a horizontal cut. That is the main issue. So we still need to investigate that and confirm that. And that is why during our verification system, we look at the slaughter process for beef as well. And we look at the slaughter process for lamb as well.
Mufti Sahib, there is another question which is being asked is, in general, the consumers believe, like the cost of hand slaughtered is, is expensive, but then, so how does that, is that always true statement, or is it also like a myth or something like that, basically?
So I will say this, brother. Alhamdulillah, I think the objective of this program is to begin a conversation and to begin a respectful conversation on these issues. MashaAllah, there's so much to cover. I'm seeing it right now. We could easily go on for another couple hours. There's a lot of important topics and there's a lot of interest as well. Right. So specifically when it comes to the issue of cost, in an ideal world, hand slaughtered chicken should only cost 1 or 2 cents more than machine slaughtered chicken. And in countries where they have more advanced halal systems, they have more demand, they have more consumer awareness, they have a stronger connection between the scholars and the public. In other countries, hand slaughter and machine slaughter cost exactly the same thing. The challenge we face right now in America is there is a shortage of hand slaughtered chicken. And unfortunately, most Muslims in America are not educated or are not concerned about hand slaughtered chicken. So as a result, what happens is it's supply and demand. When there's limited supply and the demand is higher, they're going to raise the prices. Simply put, for the number of people in America who want hand slaughter, there is not enough supply. That's a simple way of looking at it. So yes, part of that has to change. We as a community have to ask for more hand slaughter options, and we have to put our money where our mouth is and be willing to pay a little bit more for hand slaughter. Right? When we support all these machine slaughter options and we support all these restaurants, in a way, it kills the incentive for anyone to set up a hand slaughter slaughterhouse. Right? So think about this, that whether we accept machine slaughter or we don't, when we make a decision to spend $1 on a hand slaughter product, we are promoting, we are creating more incentives for more hand slaughtered supplier options. So yes, part of our objective as an organization is to look for more hand slaughter options. We work with slaughterhouses, we work on setting up hand slaughter programs, but the fact of the matter is right now, there are limited hand slaughter options in America. And as a result, the prices are much higher. And when there's going to be more options, when there's going to be more demand, inshallah, the hope would be prices would come down, inshallah. And unfortunately, due to the pandemic, many hand slaughter suppliers have raised their prices as well, which is Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Muhammadin al-Kareem. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. يا مصرف القلوب صرف قلوبنا عن طاعتك، يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا عن دينك. اللهم اغفرنا بحلالك عن حرامك واغننا بفضلك عمن سواك. أسأل الله العظيم رب العرش العظيم أن يشفي الناس أجمعين. Oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, restore the health of brother Asim Sayyid, and inshallah all the Muslims who are sick or suffering through hardship throughout the world. Oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, restore their health. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all good health. Amen. And Allah grant us all afiyah and well-being in this world and hereafter. رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ لَسَمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ سُبْحَانَ رَبِّكَ عَمَّا يَصِفُونَ وَسَلَامٌ عَلَى الْمُرْسَلِينَ وَالْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ رَبِّل عَالَمِينَ. Jazakumullah khairan to all of you for attending and your participation, inshallah.